You've heard of non-performing staff in companies, underperforming stocks in the stock market, and certainly of non-performing assets of banks. But non-performing bulls on the farm? Meaning bulls that are too old that their owners consider them a liability. But why are we concerned about non-performing bulls when we have non-performers all around? The Madhya Pradesh government recently turned its attention to its growing population of unproductive bulls on its farms and decided to sterilize them. The state has an estimated 1.2 million unproductive bulls, mostly abandoned by their owners, but after contributing a lifetime of hard work on the farm, but have now ceased to be of any economic value. Now the bulls will be wondering why us, looking at the landscape of non-performing assets across the country. Like Air India, begun by J.R.D. Tata in 1932 as Tata Airlines, listed as Air India in 1946, the aviation division of Tata Sons, and nationalized in 1953. That made it the playground for politicians and IAS officers for decades together. By 2001, the NDA government wanted to sell 40% of its stake, but was unsuccessful. The wheels of government, of course, move slower than the aging bulls of Madhya Pradesh. So it took another 20 years for the government to finally give it back to the Tatas, who had a winning bid of 180 billion rupees. Air India is just a flying version of several of India's state road transport corporations that run up losses on the ground that Air India does in the skies. Some 30 years ago, one of Air India's directors told me that Air India was nothing but the Kerala State Road Transport Corporation with wings. Now, the Kerala State Road Transport Corporation requires 1 billion rupees each month from the state government to pay salaries and keep it afloat. Talking of non-performing state road transport corporations, Karnataka is a classic example. It has not one but 4 corporations which have together run up losses of 23 billion rupees. Why 4 corporations? Because that creates more posts of chairpersons and managing directors. And who cares about losses? Those can always be passed on to India's citizens. Now, talking of non-performing assets, state road transport corporations are small fry compared to our banks. A joint report by ASSO chairman Crisel says the NPAs of our commercial banks will exceed 10 trillion rupees by March 2022. 10 trillion rupees. But we're told not to worry. All those bad loans can be passed on to a bad bank, which will clean up the balance sheets of our banks, make them look pretty for acquisition, merger, whatever. But state road transport corporations and even banks simply fade away in comparison to the biggest non-performers of federal and state governments. With virtually every sort of physical wealth, from snow-capped mountains and rivers to all sorts of mineral wealth, the world's second largest pool of human resources, and nearly 75 years of self-rule, we have managed to fall to the 101st rank on the Global Hunger Index this week, behind Bangladesh and Nepal and Pakistan. So who's behind us? Only 15 nations like Papua New Guinea, Afghanistan, Yemen, and some African countries. So just what is it that leads a nation to such underperformance that its citizens have to starve? A lot of it has to do with the quality of governance, which in India is deeply rooted in corruption, a cancer that can bring down any nation. This week, something about corruption in Indian police, which most Indians are aware of, was on social media for all to see. A circular by the Salem District Superintendent of Police, M. Sri Abhinav, in which he lists out the rates of bribes for various services offered by the police, went viral. Rupees 2,000 from lodges, 5,000 from spas, 7,000 from dhabas, 10,000 from granite quarries, 20,000 from sand smugglers, 60,000 from liquor sellers, going up to 100,000 from lottery sellers and to settle civil disputes. Police is just one arm of the government that people know is deeply into corruption. Mostly any interface with a government office gives that unproductive, non-performing, unpleasant experience to the Indian citizen. Consider this week's devastating floods in Uttarakhand and Kerala. The flood victims have lost not just their homes and property and other things, but importantly, their documents too. Now, it is well within the capacity of the local self-governments to issue them duplicate documents quickly. We are in digital India, aren't we? But no Indian citizen would expect a government office to do that. Instead, they expect to run around for years before they get duplicate documents for what they've lost. A touching example of what the average Indian thinks of the quality of governance in this country was the case of Sarin Mohan, a hotelier from Kottayam district, Kerala, this week. He wrote a suicide note blaming the unproductive, unhelpful and unimaginative COVID time policies of the Kerala government for the collapse of his hotel business before taking his life. Mohan wrote, "People can travel together in buses, crowd around at liquor shops, be together in malls, 100 can attend weddings and eat together, political parties can hold meetings, all without fear of corona. But go to a hotel, sit there and eat, and you get COVID." An intervention by BJP MP Pragya Thakur saved Madhya Pradesh's bulls from castration. Now, what can save India from its non-performing landscape? This is T20 World Cup time, a time when we Indians hold our heads high and our cricket team walks around exuding the confidence of champions. Imagine if Indian cricket were to be directly run by the government, with a public service commission to recruit players and some IAS officers to manage the team. Indians might well have turned off the television sets while the bureaucrats enjoyed their permanent jobs. Just like all the politicians and IAS officers who ran Air India for 68 years from 1953 to 2021 are enjoying their pensions. Does that say something about the way we are governed? This video is dedicated to Ganesh Sharma, a 13-year-old class 7 student from Churu district, Rajasthan, who was allegedly beaten to death by his teacher this week, and to Majabin Hakimi, a member of the Afghanistan national women's volleyball team, who was beheaded by the Taliban earlier this month. Ganesh was beaten to death for not doing his homework. Hakimi for playing volleyball being a woman. India's wonky education objectives versus Afghanistan's insane gender discrimination.